Okay, I'll open the meeting. It is Thursday, April 10th, 2025, and we're here to discuss with Panhandle Health their budget review. And it's 2 o'clock. I'll turn it over.
Thank you. Eric Kettner, I'm the director of Panhandle Health District, and
Okay.
I have Christine Crummer here. She is our fiscal officer.
Okay.
So what I wanted to bring to you today is we did prepare the FY26 budget for the health district. We did run this by our Board of Health, and they've given us authorization to move forward and take it to the county. So we met with Boundary County earlier this week, and we'll be speaking with each of the commissions and presenting the budget to them. In May, there will be, by statute, a budget hearing that will be the chairs of each of the 5 county commissioners that will ultimately vote on the budget and approve it. Christine will have details on the bill that we did do, and also how that county support is apportioned from each of the respective counties. But so I'm going to preface the budget a little bit. She'll get into the details, but really what I wanted to share is this has been challenging. About 50% of our budget is state or pass-through funding from the federal government. And a lot of that is coming from, Health and Human Services. Some of that's EPA, some FEMA, but predominantly Health and Human Services. And, we're curious how things are going to change in the upcoming year. We did, based on the information that we had, we did our best to build a conservative budget. I will share with you too that, in the past 6 or 8 months, I have been very conservative about how and what positions have been backfilled because I do anticipate change. It's a bit of a challenge because I don't know if these changes are going to be an opportunity or a potential threat to our funding. And I say that because Robert Kennedy has stated an interest in being proactive in chronic illness and prevention versus treatment. And prevention is what we do. Mm-hmm. So I expect that while we may see some changes in certain funding sources, I do expect that there may be new opportunities that we will see in the coming year, probably as we get closer to the expiration of the continuing resolution for federal funding that's in place now. So what I've been telling other commissioners is I think this is going to be an ongoing conversation, as this becomes more clear of what our future is. And specifically, how I want to align that is that the changes that may impact you or may impact the citizens, I want to make sure that we as the health district are adapting to what your needs are so that we're serving the citizens in a manner that preventative health is a less expensive approach than your impacts to your indigent fund or potentially, the impacts to the hospital costs because of treatment. So we're going to be keeping a really close eye on what changes we see at the federal level. I'm already curious if some of the additional criteria that's put on Medicaid expansion is going to put more folks into that insurance gap that may increase demand for our services. So that is going to be a conversation that I plan to have with you in coming months because I do expect change. That's the nuts and bolts of it. But more specifically, when we were building this budget, we had a few key guiding principles that we focused on. One is that, because of the unknown, we were not going to ask the counties for any additional funding. There's just too much unknown. So we're asking for stable funding from historic years. As Christine pointed out to me, in the past decade, it's been a 0.85% increase in ask that we've presented to the counties over the years. I can tell you that I have counterparts, particularly in the Boise area and others, that consistently ask for a 2 or 3% increase. We try to be very fiscally responsible with the funding. We know it's a stretch for all of the counties to fund us, but we do believe that we provide value. So we're not asking for an increase in funding. We are looking at a pay increase for our staff of 3%. We are looking at making some infrastructure, some capital improvements, because our Hayden building, while paid off, is also 20 years old, so we have some aspects of the building that are wearing out. Christine will touch on some of that. And I guess I'll just reiterate the unknown, and that I will be back in front of you as more information becomes available to me, and seek guidance and direction on what opportunities I see and how we can be an asset to the county. So with that, I'll turn it over to Christine, and
Okay.
she'll walk you through more of the details, and certainly as questions arise, I'll be happy. Oh, I will get better at this when we get to the third one. Here is
We're just practice.
Yeah.
I'm hoping that I'll get better at it, so that by the time I get through all 5 counties, I'll have it down pat.
We usually do by the 5th county. It takes a couple to get the presentation under our belt. So if we look at the first page, the county funding page, it's just a reminder that 70% of the ask comes from, and the allocation formula, 70% is based on population and 30% is based on the taxable market value of property.
Can I ask a question real fast?
You bet.
The taxable market value of the property, is this for, that would just be our tax base, right? That wouldn't be the federal or just taxable amount?
We'll show you at the back. There's
Okay.
a formula back here, and we
Okay.
can look at it in more detail. So the next page is actually our budget, and you can see that in fiscal year 26, we're asking, or our budget is $11,865,000 compared to $12,079,000 in fiscal year 25. So it's a $213,600 decrease. Let's start with the revenue. We need to know what our expectation for revenue is before we can anticipate or budget for expenditures. You'll see in the first line that the reserves, the use of program advances, that's decreased by $368,000. What we did in fiscal year 25 budget, we pulled funds from reserves, the opioid settlement funds. We had received a majority of those funds in fiscal year 24, so they were considered restricted funds. We budgeted to use those in fiscal year 25. This year, what we're doing is there is a component of reserve funds for opioid settlement funds that will be used in 26, but in the grants down here is the balance. We still anticipate about using approximately possibly $700,000 in opioid settlement funds to get those dollars back out into the community. So it's just a shifting of where those funds were previously reported in the budget compared to where they're being budgeted in fiscal year 26. We anticipate receiving about $400,000 to $500,000 directly from the state in opioid settlement funds, and that dollar amount has been budgeted in grants. So really, the 368 has just shifted down to the grants line. Licenses and fees, that represents environmental health, their revenue activity. We've had an overage because of the growth in the Kootenai County area and in a number of the counties, but primarily Kootenai County, we've had additional revenues related to fees, licensing, and permits. We've been conservative this year, and we're only anticipating approximately a $50,000 increase compared to prior years. We tried to stay conservative on that amount. Health services, that mainly represents clinical. Our home visiting program is included in that as well. And clinical, we have basically planned for level funding. This increase of $82,600 represents Medicaid income that we anticipate receiving in the home visiting program. That is relatively new. It started up last year, so it wasn't at full speed last year. This year, we're gaining momentum with it, and we anticipate more revenues coming in from Medicaid in fiscal year 26. Contracts and grants. This is mainly the federal funding that we receive that's passed through Department of Health and Welfare. We're projecting a reduction in grants, and as Eric mentioned, that landscape is still very much unknown at this point in time, but we have lost grants between fiscal year 24 and 25, and we've also seen a reduction between 24 and we lost grants, I do apologize. We lost funding in fiscal year 24. Then we saw a reduction in funding between 24 and 25. And we anticipate seeing a reduction as we go into fiscal year 26. We do anticipate, or what we have budgeted for, is level funding on the grants, but again, no guarantees on that, especially with what's happening at the federal level. Donations, other. This pretty much represents not so much donations, but rebates that we get. We receive rebates from the state for our P-card use or purchasing card use. So that would be in this $46,000. The other thing that we receive in that is rebates for our phone system, for an agreement that we have that over a number of years, we do get an annual rebate. They pay, 50%?
I think it's close to 60%.
60%? The USAC program. So that is what is represented in donations and other. Interest, I was very conservative in years past in the amount of interest income budgeted to where we show an overage each year, and I'd rather be conservative on that income. This year, I'm still conservative, but what I did is I did a look back. We are currently seeing a decrease each month in the amount of interest percent, and based on what I've been reading, we can anticipate a continued decline in that interest rate. So I took that average and applied it to what I believe will be our LGIP, which is Local Government Investment Pool balance, which is pretty much stable throughout the year. And that's how I determined the interest income for fiscal year 26. The county funding, as Eric mentioned, is the same as prior year at $2,496,900. On the next page, we have the breakdown of revenues. 49% of the income for the district comes from grants and contracts. Fees represent 28%. The county funding is 21%, and other income is 2%. When we get to the next page, this is where the formula comes in. We start with a formula. So the population for Shoshone County for fiscal year 26, and this is coming from the U.S. Census, is the source, and for the valuation, that information comes from the Idaho State Tax Commission. So for fiscal year 26, 14,074 is the census amount. It's an increase of 48 over prior year, and the valuation is $2,321,000,000. It's a 3% increase over prior year. In total, that's a $150 million increase. So if we take these numbers, carry them forward to the next page, we will take the pro rata share. You can see in this top half portion, the 70% contribution. We determine a percentage allocation for each county. We take that percentage and apply it towards the $2.5 million. And the allocation for Shoshone County on population alone is $87,500. The allocation on valuation is $24,300, bringing the total allocation for Shoshone County to $111,000. That's a decrease. If we look in the lower left-hand corner, that's a decrease of $387 compared to prior year. Does that help explain the calculation?
Yes.
Okay. Are there any questions on the budget?
I just have, you say contracts and grants. So what's the difference between, what's contracts?
Contracts would be, an example would be, a good example would be a WIC contract that is funded through DHW. It's over $300,000, and that provides, the nutrition for qualifying individuals.
Mm-hmm.
Other grants, home visiting, nurse-family partnership, that grant, I think we probably have that 8-9 years now. That is a program where there are nurses and they have to go through specific training. They can go out to qualifying individuals that are either expecting or have a child within a certain age range. And they go out and work with these individuals if everything is okay, if the child is meeting the certain benchmarks for an infant that age, and any concerns, problems that family or that new mother may be having. Other programs, we have programs in environmental. One, it's not necessarily environmental, but the child care program, where we go out and assess daycare centers. We also have programs, the public water system grant. And Eric, you can speak better to that than I can as to what that program does.
Well, and I guess is your question more general to
Yeah, more general to what
contracts
versus grants. So the contracts are basically grants themselves. They're all, they're grants for contracts.
Okay.
So they're all the same, grants and contracts?
For the most part, yes.
Okay.
And I apologize for not picking up on that. So contracts would be like grants would be like the WIC.
Mm-hmm.
Contracts might be something like RBHB, where we have an administrative contract with DHW to oversee the Regional Behavioral Health Board, RBHB, to where it's volunteers that compose that board, but we provide the administrative support. Jessica, the management assistant, she'll do minutes, she'll arrange travel for them. They use our accounting system. We provide the financial support. We have the policies and procedures in place. That would be a good example of a contract.
And we have in Benoit County, we have contracts with the school district to provide school nursing services, whereas a number of the funding sources come through as grants because it is pass-through funding.
Okay. Mm-hmm. All right, that answers my question. Thank you.
So if we look at, I got ahead of myself. We didn't discuss expenditures. If we take a peek at salary and wages, we can see we have a decrease of $419,000. What we have in our salary and wages for fiscal year 2026 is a 3% increase, which represents approximately $167,000. We also have, between the two budget years, a decrease in full-time equivalents, FTEs, of approximately 9 FTEs. And again, that goes to some of our reduced funding, not replacing positions until we have a better feel of what's happening with our funding. Employee benefits, health insurance went up 10%. It was $13,000. It is now $14,300 for fiscal year 26. One other thing that is included in personnel that we haven't had to deal with in the past, and this is a fallout of House Bill 316, is we used to fall under, we being the health districts, would fall under the state for state unemployment. We bear that burden now. So the health district has elected to pay actual cost for unemployment benefits received. We will pay actual costs on a quarterly basis. Never having to budget for this, I did budget $78,000. Payout is $416 a month. I believe they're eligible 12 to 13 weeks. I'd have to go back and look at my notes. And I just roughly estimated, and I probably estimated a bit high, that maybe 6-7 individuals would be eligible for unemployment in fiscal year 26. So we'll see how that looks as we go into fiscal year 27.
I don't know if I got a copy of that part of the budget.
Yeah,
Oh.
it's on the front.
On the front?
Page 3.
Page 3. Okay.
I think we went back to revisit the top
Okay.
portion of that. too.
Yes,
Okay.
I apologize.
No, that's okay.
So operating expenses, what we have in operating expenses this year is, this may sound familiar to what we presented last year. We didn't meet our goal in getting some of our items that were included in operating expense in fiscal year 25 or in capital expense. We didn't accomplish some of those items. So we're hoping to get them done in fiscal year 26. We have budgeted this year an $80,000 computer refresh. We haven't had a computer refresh since prior to COVID. Typically, we try to do that every 3 to 4 years. Our systems are getting outdated. So that is included in the fiscal year 26 budget. Also included is some parking lot maintenance for the 5 northern counties, checking to see if, we need to reseal them, fill any cracks. We notice a few things at the Hayden office. We've budgeted $30,000 for that maintenance. The large dollars are actually seen in the capital area. Capital is budgeted at $473,000 compared to $191,000 prior year, an increase of $282,000. If you'll recall, last year we had hoped to do some carpet, replacing some carpet in the Hayden facility. As Eric mentioned, that building is now over 20 years old. And there's areas where the carpet is lifting and it cannot be adhered to the flooring based on individuals that have come in and looked at it. So we're hoping to do a full carpet refresh in fiscal year 26. Included is $200,000 in the budget for that item. Something that needs to be done, pardon me, our HVAC system is at end of life. There needs to be replacement of certain components of that system, and that is budgeted at $139,000. The Kellogg badge system, security system, this was in last year's budget, was not accomplished. We're hoping to get that done in fiscal year 26. It is the only building out of the 5 that does not have any type of security in it. And then landscaping, we had mentioned this last year at the Bonners Ferry facility. We did some major interior renovations, and there's some exterior components that need to be done. So landscaping has been budgeted at $20,000. Those are the significant changes in the budget. The one item that I have not touched on is the trustee payments, the pass-through funding. And what trustee payments pass-through funding represents is money that is not, or expenditures that really are not health district expenditures, not their operating expense. For example, the opioid settlement funding. We do an application process in the spring where individuals or entities seek opioid settlement funding. They submit an application for a specific project. If they're awarded that funding, then upon completion, we will reimburse them because it's not our operating expense. We're passing money through That goes through the trustee pass-through funds. So fiscal year 26, it's budgeted at $403,000 compared to the prior year of $148,000, and a majority of that is opioid settlement funding that will be passed through.
And if I can insert myself, one of the justifications for that is that we, with the unknown aspects of funding from the federal level, we wanted to play to our strengths. We have the opioid settlement funding. We know that we can anticipate that. So we're hoping to make significant strides in hiring a prevention educator, and possibly we had a bit of a sidebar conversation with Boundary County and trying to support some of their treatment and recovery from some of the folks that are exiting incarceration. So we're really trying to focus our efforts, and as you can see, the funding that we have in those areas. And I expect that when we get the prevention educator online, we're going to be bringing those out to all 5 northern counties in conjunction with the Catch My Breath, one of the nicotine cessation programs, and getting that out into the schools. But that is one area where, because we have stable funding, we're going to try to make some significant headway, and so you'll be hearing more from us on that.
Okay.
So I'd like to also mention, because I mentioned earlier that we would be putting out, anywhere from $500,000 to $700,000 back into the community, and I just referenced here in pass-through funding $403,000. The other component would be up. Remember, $403,000 is passed through to entities who have applied for the money. Then there's going to be the PhD program, what we choose to do in-house. So that difference is going to be up in salary and wages, health benefits, and a component for our operating expenses related to that program.
And I believe that some funding was or is about to be dispersed to the Shoshone court system to provide training to a number of staff. I wish I could speak a little more intelligently to that. It's something that has literally happened in the past couple of weeks.
It's, if I recall, I reviewed that agreement. If I recall, it is for attendance to an annual training that will assist them in the drug court. And we also received a request for actually fiscal year, it would be in our fiscal year 27 funding period, where they would also like to send another group of individuals to the same training.
Now, that's through the drug court themselves? They've asked that?
I think, yes, it's Shoshone County, and I'm quite certain it's the drug court. I looked at the event online. It appears to be well attended and very popular. It appears to cater to the drug courts.
So again, to summarize where we are playing to our strengths on this with the opioid settlement funding, certainly with the ICP program, I expect we'll have stable funding. Our environmental health programs, we have some control over that future because we can set fees for the services that we provide. So expect stable funding there. Where it's going to be a bit of an unknown is in clinical services and in our health promotions programs. But that's where I want to keep us in a position where we can be flexible and we can adjust, because it's hard to imagine if, with the criteria that the Idaho legislature has set, and then the federal government looking at $880 billion over the next 10 years, that is not going to increase those folks falling into that insurance gap. And again, I think that it's an opportunity potentially for us to help step in and support the counties in those costs.
Okay.
Are there any questions related to the budget?
No, I don't have any.
No.
As usual, you do a thorough job.
Yes.
Well, thank you. I apologize for leaving out the expenditures. I had to go back to them.
We would love to skip expenditures.
That would
We
be
need
nice,
them.
wouldn't it?
Or I guess if I can ask, are is there anything that you're seeing in the future where we could play an additional role, or costs coming at you, or are you sort of in the same boat with us with the number of unknowns?
Well, yeah, we're kind of in the same boat with our grants, and especially our SRS funds.
I
So
saw that article in the
Yeah.
paper.
So we've got some issues coming up that we got to deal with. So
That was a significant source of funding for your maintenance in schools. Is that?
Public
yeah,
Works.
public
Yeah.
works, yeah,
Public Works in schools. Significant.
yeah, 40% of our
40%.
budget. Yeah,
Yeah, it's going to be challenging, and that's where again we're hoping to be part of the solution, because I think all of the counties are in a similar position.
mm-hmm.
So,
Okay.
Well, we appreciate it.
Yeah.
And all the
Thank
hard
you.
work.
All right.
We'll
Thank
see
you, guys.
next week.
Yes. Thank you.
yeah. Looking forward to seeing you and having a fully established board and full representation.
Would you like to touch on the budget budget committee meeting in May and the chairman?
Oh, well, I did allude to that earlier. It's going to be an hour prior to our May 20th meeting that we'll have that budget hearing. And whether the chairman shows up to that meeting, or I believe you can establish a proxy.
Mm-hmm.
And since you have a commissioner that will
Yes.
be at the regular meeting, then maybe you can put that responsibility
Okay.
on Commissioner Cowles. Am I missing something?
No, you're not. But if there is a proxy, please have it documented in your minutes. We had an issue with that a number of years ago, so there has to be a formal.
So we have to do a formal minute entry into one of our public meetings to.
If it's
Make sure.
yes, if you reassign that.
And that's May 20th.
I will have to. I believe that's the third Thursday in May. So don't have a calendar for me. I don't. That. Okay.
All right. Well, we'll get it done.
Okay. Excellent. If you
I
have
appreciate it.
any other questions leading up to that,
Meeting adjourned.